Hey besties.
Hey.
Welcome back for another episode of the Hello Bestie podcast. I'm Maggie.
I'm Tashima.
All right, guys, today we are discussing Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. So the premise of this story is it's a story about different things, as the author says. It's a story about idiots. It's a story about a hostage drama and a bank robbery. So it starts out with a 39-year-old person in a medium-sized town leaving with a pistol and going to rob a bank. They find out that it is a cashless bank, and the amount that they're robbing the bank for is specifically $6,500, which is interesting. And once they find out it's a cashless bank, they immediately get freaked out, run across the street into the first door that they see, and they see that the stairs go up. That's the only place they can go. They go up the stairs, and then they end up seeing an apartment that is open for a viewing, and then it immediately turns into a hostage situation.
Right.
So once police get there, there are two policemen, Jack and Jim.
Correct.
So Jack is the son, Jim is the father, and their dynamic is pretty interesting because Jack is kind of new and hip and trying to get his dad to learn how to use Google, and Jim is basically a dinosaur trying to keep up in new age technology and things. So Jim really loves his son, but it just seems like Jack gets very frustrated with working with him all the time.
With a boomer.
Yeah, basically. And they're the first on the scene. They find a box that ends up being filled with Christmas lights, but they think it's a bomb. So Jim is like, we got to get out of here. And yeah, that's how the story initially starts out. So it starts as a bank robbery that instantly turns into a hostage situation.
It kind of starts off with this is a story about a man on a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Talks about his background,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of cuts to but you don't need to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
But ultimately that was almost the core of the book was the opening of this book, which they're that's not really important.
He's like, here's this ticking time bomb. Just gonna lay this on you. Looks like this guy's gonna jump to his death, but don't worry about him.
Yeah.
We'll get back to him later.
So your backstory of the guy on the bridge is a man who went into a bank looking for a loan. He was told by the bank to invest in certain things and that this would be amazing, and ultimately the bank lost all the money, and the guy crashed. Was basically, okay, but now I have nothing. And ultimately, so he's talking to a woman at the bank who runs the bank, and she's like, well, he's like, yeah, but it wasn't my fault. And she's like, well, yeah, it is your fault because you should have never given the bank the money.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, you're the idiot.
Mm-hmm.
You should know better than to trust the bank with your money. And so he basically goes to the bridge. Yeah, right?
Yeah, go ahead, ride with it.
He goes to the bridge, and there's a young man who happens to see this man on the bridge, and he's trying to talk him off from not jumping.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy reveals that he does have kids, and the young kid, he's just trying to talk to him and basically make him realize that he shouldn't jump.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately the guy appreciates the kid trying to put forth the effort, but he ends up jumping, which really messes up the kid.
Understandably so, because he's thinking he's engaging with me, right. So I'm getting through to him.
Yeah, and then the guy just jumps. In the meantime, the woman at the bank received a letter from this guy who jumped off of the bridge, and she basically goes on never opening the letter, filled with regret.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out later that the kid on the bridge, and then I think a week later, actually, there was a young woman who also then went on the bridge.
A teenager.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the man being on the bridge, I don't think we mentioned this happened 10 years prior to the hostage drama.
Right.
So it talks about the bank robbery hostage situation. Then it goes to 10 years ago, a man stood on a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Here's his background. And yeah, to your point, the man jumped. Jack couldn't save him. And then a week later...
Well, we find out that actually was Jack.
Oh, did we not say Jack's name?
No.
Oh, sorry.
You said a young boy.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
So there's a young woman, a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't even try to talk to her. He just grabs her
and like snatches her off the bridge, but then so hard that when she hits the ground, she gets a concussion. So she doesn't actually know who saved her life or how. Like, she just knows she woke up in the hospital. She was on the bridge and then she was in the hospital.
Meanwhile, the woman at the bank sees this happening, ends up going and gets the ID of the girl, and then kind of just keeps tabs on her.
Yeah, throughout her life. Because since she received the letter from the guy who jumped off the bridge, she now has kind of an unhealthy obsession with this bridge, knowing that there was somebody that she interacted with who jumped off the bridge, who also sent her a letter that she has never opened, and being filled with regret on that he jumped. It was her fault that he jumped. Is basically how she feels.
And she doesn't want to open the letter because she feels like that's what it says, and I don't need to see that.
Yeah.
But she also carries it with her in her purse. Everywhere. She has it with her at all times.
So that woman is Zara. And then the boy on the bridge who was trying to talk the man down and unable to, and then save the young girl, that was Jack, who is now, 10 years later, a police officer working with his dad. And
became a police officer because he wants to be able to help people.
Right. And then the woman on the bridge is...
Nadia.
So.
And Nadia ends up becoming a psychologist.
Correct.
Who eventually Zara ends up going to visit because she needs to re-up on her sleeping medication or something, and her doctor told her. And Zara is very dry, and it's funny too because as guilty as she feels, she didn't change her demeanor or how she interacts with other people at all. She's still very dry, very sarcastic,
very cynical,
direct in a very mean way.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Rich because she runs a bank, and looks down on people, more or less. And yeah, she ends up going to Nadia. So she knows who Nadia is, but Nadia obviously has no clue for all of this. Yeah. So after the man on the bridge, now we jump back to the apartment. And this book does a lot of jumping back and forth to present time and previous times, and then kind of like a coinciding timeline, because as it's telling the story, as it's telling the story of the bank robbery itself, the police are also interviewing all of the people there. So it's got a lot going on. You got to really pay attention to what's happening.
Right.
So in the apartment, there are multiple people viewing it. So Zara happens to be one of the people who are there, who we just talked about is the woman at the bank. And she actually started going to apartment viewings after the man jumped off the bridge, but she only views apartments that have a view of that bridge.
Right. And
it's also, as being a rich woman, it's a fun activity for her to see how regular people live, basically. So it's kind of this, it's a whole thing that she has.
And she also has a little bit of some dark thoughts in regards to jumping off herself.
Right.
Which is why, like, so basically when she goes to this viewing, she goes outside to the balcony and imagines herself jumping off the bridge.
Yep. So the different people who are in the apartment, the hostages, are Julia and Ro, who is a lesbian couple. Julia is extremely pregnant, and they are looking to purchase this apartment to expand their family. Then you have Annalena and Roger, and they are an elderly couple who are essentially in the house flipping business. Who else was in there? There was those two. There was Estelle, who is also an elderly woman. Her husband is trying to park the car, so she's waiting on her husband to get up there.
And they're looking for an apartment for their daughter.
Correct.
Is what she says.
Yep. And then there's another character who ends up popping up, who is Lennart, who is someone that Annalena hires. So Roger and Annalena try to run game when they go to apartment
Mm-hmm.
viewings. It's something that they do, trying to purchase things to flip. So they try to make comments like, "Oh, is that mold?"
They talk bad about the apartments to get other people to not want to buy it,
Right.
so the realtor will end up lowering the cost or the asking price of the house, and they
Mm-hmm.
can get it for a deal, but then they basically stay there for a short period of time. She does the interior decorating on the home, he does a little fixing things in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then they basically flip it, and then they just keep doing that. So they don't actually even have their own home, they just go from home to home to home that they buy.
Right. Right. And Annalena has started to hire Leonard, unbeknownst to Roger, to be an extra person to just come in and do and say weird things to help them with their
Discourage
plan.
people from buying the house. So like he'll act like a drunk neighbor and just show up, and he's basically an actor
Mm-hmm.
who pretends to make homes undesirable
Yeah.
to lower also the asking price of the homes.
Yeah.
But Roger didn't know that Annalena was doing this,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll find out later.
Yeah. So there are 8 people total in the apartment, and that's including the realtor who, girl, the realtor was so annoying.
House tricks.
Yeah, so the realtor has, their company name is House Tricks, but she had this tagline like House Tricks that would just get crickets every single
Yeah.
time. I don't know why she thought it was so funny and amusing and so clever, but that was an ongoing thing. The amount of times I heard them say that throughout the book was.
House tricks. Get it? House tricks.
So everyone just has their own individual characters, and I think when the bank robbers stumbled upon this, it was a pretty funny scene because I think Annalena and Roger were going back and forth about something. Um,
Roger or Ro and Julia arguing about it. Like everybody's in these very just everybody has an ulterior motive. Nobody's
mhm.
talking to each other. You know, Annalena is upset because people aren't following the rules of how viewings should be shown. But then the apartment itself looked like somebody was still living there. So in the closet, like instead of it being staged, it looked like
Mhm.
somebody was still living there.
Right.
There's like really old, dated clothes in the closet,
Mhm.
food in the refrigerator and the freezer, and Annalena's mad because people were actually opening the freezer, and she's like, "There's only a certain amount of time that you're allowed to open these things, and you can't just open cabinets unless it's in the kitchen." And she's like, yeah.
I think Ro tried to eat a lime or something,
Yeah,
and she was getting all pissed off,
with
like, "You
the
don't eat
rind on
those,
it.
right?" And Estelle, the older lady, she's trying to get everyone to just come together and introduce themselves and turn it into this like family style thing that didn't need to be. And the bank robber rolls up on all of this.
Right.
So they are very surprised.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing here with a gun? But they don't have the traditional oh shit reaction that you think people would have. And that's one thing that made it interesting. Zara found out very quickly, oh, I guess it takes me getting a gun put in my face to realize I don't really want to die.
Right.
So that was like an epiphany that she had. And this is also something that she tells Jack when he's doing her interrogation as well. All right, so again, dual timelines here. So while we're learning about the different characters, then it hops back to the interrogations. So
Mm-hmm.
they've interviewed the realtor, a young lady named London, who was a very sarcastic young lady who was also the person who told the bank robber that this was a cashless bank.
Yeah, the teller at the cashier.
Yeah, the teller. So they're interviewing that person. Jack is getting very frustrated because he's not really getting anything out of these people. And they all have a general consensus because by the time the police came, the hostages had been released, but the bank robber was nowhere to be found.
Right.
And none of them knew where the bank robber was. So obviously, as police do, they tried to scan the area and they ended up finding like a crumpled piece of paper that they use as evidence. And it has a picture of, it's a child's drawing of a monkey, a frog, and they think of a giraffe or something else. So
Right.
they're basically showing it to each of the people and trying to see if they can guess what this is in hopes that it's going to give them some kind of clue into who the bank robber was or what their intentions are. Yeah.
And they're all kind of acting like, so where they ask somebody a question like something as simple as what's your name, and then Julia and Ro are like Julia and Ro, it's like, right, but what is your actual names? And it's like, well, those are our names, those are the names you go by. And He's like, no, but like, what is your legal name? And it's like, well, what difference does that make? We're not, are you accusing us of being bank robbers now? Are you saying that we're, like under investigation? And he's like, no, I just need to know what your name is. She's like, well, you don't need to yell. Why are you yelling at me? And like, for every interview, you're going round and round in circles where it seems like the police officers are asking a question and then the people are just kind of like stonewalling them. And so Jack is getting really frustrated because he's trying to get to the bottom of this. But then in the meantime, while he's in an interrogation, Jim, who is AKA also his dad, will basically come in and say, oh, did you remember to ask them this? And he's like, yes, I did. You don't need to be here. He's like, oh, well, I just wanted to sit in. And he's like, no, you don't need to be here. I have this under control. And then, so you not only have this dynamic where it seems like all of the witnesses are not actually being forthcoming and everybody is hiding something, but then you also have this really complicated relationship between Jack and Jim, and like Jim really wanting to look out for his son and protect his son, but then, Jack is like, back off. I have this under control. But then also kind of also needing his dad low key, but not really wanting to admit it.
Right.
So it's just all of these really complicated things that are all happening at the same time. So the witnesses are not being very good witnesses. And he's like, I don't understand what's happening right now. Why does it seem like nobody's wanting to actually tell me anything?
Yeah, do you want to find this guy or not?
Correct. And so everybody's like, I mean, I don't know, do you? This really seems to be a you problem and not a me problem. Like, can I go?
Right.
And he's like, you haven't even told me anything. And it's like, well, what do you want to know? And he's like,
like banging his head against the wall.
Yeah, exactly. And just going round and round and round. And then, they go to the apartment and they're just trying to figure out how is it that, we come into this apartment, and everybody, all 8 people come out and the apartment is completely empty and there really is nowhere that this person could have gone.
Jack's doing his best. He's doing as best as he can to solve this crime, but it's very clear that they aren't getting a lot. So then, you got to call the boss, and they ended up wanting to send some people from Stockholm. To come and kind of take over the investigation. And Jack was very upset about that because it makes him feel incompetent. And he feels like if everybody would just cooperate, I can actually do this myself. We don't need those Stockholmers coming here. So then that was a whole extra layer too that they're trying to avoid, these people coming and taking over their investigation. Yeah.
And then it also mentions that while he's interrogating these people who aren't cooperating and he keeps being interrupted by his dad, he also has like a really bad headache because he has this giant knot on his forehead. So it's just, for him, it's been a really awful, terrible day.
Right.
That seems like this cannot be my reality right now. And for everybody else, they don't really understand what the problem is.
Right. And they're actually looking up on Google how to solve a robbery. And
how to do an interrogation, how to do a hostage situation. In the meantime, you kind of have these flashes where everybody kind of zones out here and there, where they have these internal monologues. And so through the series, we'll just collectively put a lot of these things in together, even though they do not happen in this order in the book.
Right.
So nothing that we're telling you is really happening in sequential order because there just is no way to talk about this in that way.
Yeah, the book is not written in sequential order, and it's just, it's everything happening at one time. So you kind of have to break down the story into,
Yeah. So you find out that Jim's wife, Jack's mom, was a priest. But she was a very unconventional priest who cursed like a sailor, who drank, praised the Lord, but didn't really judge people for believing or not believing. Right. She kind of seemed like a badass superhero mom.
Yeah.
She put her life on the line, but she also knew how to read the Word of God and tried to uplift people and help. And basically there was a line in there that I really appreciated where if somebody questioned, the fact that she drank or that she smoked or that she cursed, like that doesn't really seem like something that God would approve of. And her response would be, well, I think he knows that I'm working for him.
Right.
Like he knows my heart. He knows that I'm here to do good. So sue me.
For her, it was more important to kind of like an evangelist of sorts, where it's more important to find people and get them to believe than you have to live by this strict set of rules.
Yeah, or just to help.
Right.
Because she didn't need, Jack didn't believe, and he mentioned that she never forced him to, and she just accepted him for who he was. Well, she passed away, and it hit their whole family really hard.
She was like the glue that held those two together.
Right. And so even though she did a lot of things that frustrated them by, putting her life at risk to help other people, she was very much the glue. And so when she died, it was really hard for them, because he's like, but why would God allow you, why would he do that to you? And so the relationship between Jack and Jim was also a little strained, just from the loss of her. And then also the mention of the sister who is a drug addict and basically didn't even show up for the funeral, will call and ask for money, and then they're grappling with but how good is a police officer who can't even save their own child?
Right.
So everybody has these things that, everybody has imposter syndrome. Where everybody is portraying themselves to be this thing, but they don't feel like they deserve to even be this thing.
Right.
Because of all sorts of stuff.
This book dropped bars. Things. This book dropped some bars. Just talked about how, I think Anxious People was a really good title for the book, and I mean, we'll get into that later, but just how everybody is just out here doing their best. Everybody is pretending to be something they're not. Nobody is as well off as they appear. And, most people are idiots and do stupid things. And in hindsight, you always go back and think, I could have done that better. I should have done that better. And you're judged for things that you do in an instant. And I thought that was so true. He said, you can be the most perfect parent ever, and no one will ever know. But if you take your kid to the park and for 1 minute you look down at your phone, your kid falls off the monkey bars and breaks its arm, that's the parent that you're going to be known for, that's so busy on their phone that they aren't even watching their kid. And you looked for 1 minute.
Right.
You aren't judged by all the other good things that you did. You're judged in that moment. And that's so true.
Ballet recitals you went to that you worked 14 days straight to be able to pay for these lessons. And this one thing will define you forever. And as a parent, you also then judge yourself and scrutinize yourself, because I feel like a lot of people can say that they grew up thinking that they were going to do things very differently from their own parents. Right. And then sometimes when you become a parent, you look at yourself and you're like, wow. Yeah, so about that.
Yeah, but then now you understand why they did what they did, and that understanding had to come with you going through it yourself.
Correct. Because even as a parent is judged, or a person is judged for this one thing that they do, we also then judge everybody around us for the decisions that we see them making, but we never are privy to the why.
Yeah, that always goes back to that saying, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge everybody else by their actions. And a lot of times people's actions don't always reflect their intentions. It's just what it is sometimes. So yeah, girl, this book dropped some bars like that. And even when Jack was trying to talk him down, it's like, that's what any decent human would do, right? If you saw someone jumping off a bridge, wouldn't you try to talk him down?
Yeah, you wouldn't just keep going.
Right.
Yeah, but in how it would affect you if that person did jump. Yeah. Thinking for 1 second that you actually were getting through to this person.
Yeah. Yeah. So meanwhile, Jack still has nightmares, and he thinks about this all the time, obviously. And Zara is still attending her therapy sessions, and how did you feel about when Zara lied and told Nadia that she had cancer to make her think that she did? And then she's like, no, I'm just kidding, I don't. And she's like, why would you joke about something like that? And she's like, would you rather actually had cancer? What does that say about you? That was kind of like, well, damn, no, I don't. But it is inappropriate for you to say that. Zara would just create these awkward situations like that.
But she did it in a way where she she wasn't trying to be awkward. She actually was trying to have conversation. It's just she wasn't. Yeah, she just doesn't have a good way of talking to people. Like, and well, when she said that, I wasn't surprised, and I didn't think that she had cancer. Like, I was kind of like, huh. And then, I mean, you know, like, you find out that she doesn't. And because she did the same thing then in the interrogation room.
Right.
And received the same response. And it just got me thinking, why does that make people so uncomfortable? And then later in the book, you kind of, I think it's Estelle, where she was talking about an author from a book. Every time he would call somebody, he would say death, 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 or die, 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 or something like that. And then it's like, okay, well, now that we've gotten that out of the way, because that being the worst thing that we could actually talk about is death, now everything else after that doesn't seem so bad.
Right.
So it's all a matter of perspective.
It is. It's a different way of looking at things.
And being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, because if we all truly said the things that we felt, I don't think that they would be so, like, these pills wouldn't be so hard to swallow.
I agree.
If everybody was truly, truly honest.
I agree.
You know, and didn't act like they were from Stockholm all the time. I still don't really know what that means.
So during the interrogations, like, relationships are being built essentially in the apartment. So Estelle is like, let's all introduce ourselves. I'm Estelle, and trying to bring the bank robber into all of this and trying to understand, why are you doing what you're doing? And they decided to order a pizza because they're like, hey, aren't we going to have a negotiator? This is what people do in hostage situations. They order pizzas. And the bank robber is like, you guys are the weirdest hostages anyone could ever think of.
This is after like 4 or 5 hours of this hostage situation. And they're starving, and you got a pregnant woman, and, you know, people are kind of like, some of these ugly truths are coming out that, you know, they're trying to keep from each other, but because they're all in these confined spaces, a lot of these things that people weren't really saying are being now said.
Yeah, at a certain point, a few of them go in a closet. I think one of them is smoking a cigarette, and Estelle's like, oh, I think there's wine in here. It's like Annalena, yeah.
Yeah. Annalena said she doesn't smoke. It might have been Estelle.
Maybe it was Estelle. Oh, Estelle was
smoking
and drinking. Yeah.
And they just are confiding in each other, like, the issues that they have with their partners and with this whole situation. And, you know, come to find out that Ro has been acting really weird because she's afraid of being a parent. And you find out that her dad is in a Alzheimer's unit, and she really hasn't had to do life independently because he's always been there to guide her and tell her what to do, how to do it, how to fix this, how to do that. And she doesn't think that she can be as good of a parent as he can because she doesn't know how to ask him. Right. Girl, when I tell you that part made me watery, like, even talking about it, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Get it together. Yeah. Get it together. And she's like, I didn't have a chance to write it down. I was like, man. And then Estelle, she confesses that her husband isn't actually moving the car. Yeah. He died. Yeah. And that the apartment that has been listed for sale is actually her apartment.
And this is why it looks like someone is living here, because someone is actually living here.
She pretended to be a prospective buyer because she wanted to be sure that the house was purchased by an actual people who wanted to make it a family home and not house flippers like Annalena and Roger.
Right. Because she didn't really want to move and let it go. Her daughter is kind of pressuring her to move on and get rid of
a smaller place. Yeah. And then you have Roger, who is very upset with Annalena because he finds out about Lennart being in the bathroom with a rabbit's head on the toilet. Right. So that, you know, basically to freak people out and not want to buy the place. And then he finds out that it actually wasn't his negotiating skills that was driving the prices of these homes that they've been flipping. It was actually because she was hiring this actor to basically sabotage these viewings. And the reason why she was doing it is because she thought that eventually he would sell enough homes that he would be ready to buy them a home and they could just settle down, because she was tired of doing the house flipping.
And she wanted him to feel like he was winning at something.
Right.
Because their kids are gone and they're grandparents now, and like their relationship isn't together. And I think he got let go from his job, or maybe something happened with his job. And she wanted him to feel like, she just wanted a guarantee we're going to be able to get houses. And just in case his negotiation isn't there, I got this guy who I know for sure he's going to feel like he's winning at this.
Because she basically felt like she needed to pay him back, because contrary to the belief of the people who interacted with her, who thinks that she's a very doting and submissive wife, she was the breadwinner in their relationship, and she was a very successful, I don't know, let's just say she was high up on the food chain of the business that she was running. And as a result, he had to pass up some promotions so that he could be more available to help with the kids.
Right.
So that she could travel and make these meetings. And so, you know, like when it came down to like her retiring, at that point he was old. He wasn't getting any of these promotions, and you know, they basically felt that he was burnt out, and basically forced him into retirement that he wasn't ready for. And so she feels like he gave so much, you know, and the higher up that she got on the food chain, the harder it was to justify her then stepping down.
Right.
And so she felt like, okay, I have to give him this by any means necessary. And so their relationship is kind of weird, but ultimately you think Roger is pretty much a dick, but then through Annalena you find out that he isn't.
No.
He just has like a really rough exterior, but when you cut away from all of that, he genuinely is a decent person.
Yeah.
So when they decide that they want to get the pizza, they don't have a way to communicate with the police. So they basically go over the balcony and they're trying to get the attention of the police officer. So Ro takes a line and throws it off the balcony, and it ends up hitting Jack.
Which is where the knot came from.
And that's how he got the knot on his forehead. And so they're having this awkward shouting conversation where they basically are like, we want pizzas. And then they do talk to the police officer or somebody,
the negotiator,
because they put the order in for all these like really strange orders of pizza.
Yeah, and that was another thing.
Copa or something.
I think was it was either Ro or Jessica. I think it was Jessica that just was very particular, like not that much cheese, a little bit of sauce, and
she's like, a Hawaiian with no ham and no pineapples.
She's like, that is effectively not a Hawaiian. Like, can you please just get a pizza and not have to do this all the time?
They get the pizzas, and then it's kind of in this moment that where they're eating these pizzas that they start to kind of feel a little bit more like a dysfunctional family.
Yeah. Because
at that moment, everybody comes from these little crevices that they've been hiding within the apartment, and they're just talking. Zara and Lennart have a little bit of a moment on the balcony where he's talking to her just in terms of like her opinion on the whole situation, and they're talking about the problem with house flippers and the checks and balances of the economic system are put in place to basically self-regulate, and that's her opinion. So when you have people who are house flippers or people like him that impact the value of this home and the buying and selling of it, that messes up the natural order of things. And then that's how you have all of these things like stock market crashes and all of that stuff, because the system isn't working the way it's supposed to. So, you know, like they have this weird moment, and she says what she needs to say, he says what he needs to say, but they, like, he now is intrigued with her. She's kind of like, I mean, I guess. And so you have a little bit of this, but then they, like I said, they all come together, they eat the pizza, and then they all have a little bit of a moment of like, who needs to open the door to receive the pizza. So I feel like we kind of jumped to that, but I don't know. Okay. There's like, I feel like there's so much stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
While all this is happening, Jack is like, I don't understand. Like, okay, so obviously we're back in the apartment, but now we're jumping out of the apartment.
Right.
Where interrogations are happening. And Jack thinks that he figured out, I know, like he starts putting all the pieces together and he realizes that if there are 8 hostages plus the bank robber, but they only ordered 8 pizzas. So he starts putting everything together of like, one of the hostages is the bank robber. And so he's like, I think I figured it out, because through these little bits and pieces that people are not giving him,
right,
he has figured out from something that Roger said, and then also something that Ro and Julia said. Basically, there is renovations that have happened within this apartment that aren't on the actual floor plan. So he's thinking that the bank robber never left the apartment, and that the bank robber might still be there.
Right.
So he's like, I figured it out. So he and his dad run back to the apartment, and then he's like, because somewhere shortly after the hostages were let go, the gun went off and there's blood on the floor. And so they go back in the apartment. He's like, right, but like, if there, with this amount of blood, where's the bank robber? Why is there no more blood anywhere? And so then the person who's supposed to be watching the apartment is like, oh, that's not actual blood, that's fake blood. Because I'm also like, a magician is like his real passion.
Yeah, this other random police officer.
It's like, the lookout. In my free time, I'm a police officer, but I'm actually really a magician. And so he's like, yeah, that's stage blood. See how it's pooling? Real blood doesn't do that in this amount of time. And so they're like, okay, so like, what is happening? And so he goes up into the closet that has been renovated into this other room between these apartments. And he thinks that the bank robber might be hiding in between a wall.
Right.
And then he finds out that that's not the case.
He does find a rabbit head, though.
He finds a rabbit head that Lennart was wearing, and all these things. And then ultimately, he goes back to the interrogation rooms, and he accuses House Trix of being the bank robber. And she's like, what? Not me. And he's like, no realtor would be this dumb. Like, there's no way. Like, you're faking. Like, no realtor is gonna have an apartment viewing right before New Year's Eve. Nobody would have, like, you're a fake, you're a fraud. And she's like, no, like, I am. I'm and then kind of flashing back to the apartment, and you figure out that Estelle, who was the owner of the home, wanted to find a realtor who would be willing to show this home right before New Year's.
Yeah, the afternoon before New Year's Eve.
Because her and her husband would always watch the fireworks from the balcony. And so you kind of find out, like, everybody has a reason for being here, and all these secrets start to come together. The person who took the pizzas up to the apartment was Jim, Jack's dad. Jim was talking to the Stockholmers, I think, the hostage negotiator from Stockholm. And while Jack was busy with that, Jim just decided to take the pizzas up himself.
Right.
And which Jack specifically told him not to do.
Because it's very dangerous, right.
Correct. So he takes the pizzas up, and it's at that moment that he ends up having a conversation with the bank robber. And so while he's talking to the bank robber, or the bank robber's like, can I give the pizzas to everybody? They basically sit on the floor, and you find out that the bank robber is a woman. And he's like, but how did this all happen? And so she just tells him the whole story that all the people within the apartment are already privy to.
She found out that her husband was cheating on her with her boss. She has 2 daughters, and he wants to leave her for her boss, wants to get a divorce. She doesn't have a lot of money. She has no money saved,
was in his name.
No job. Everything was in his name. He's being a complete jackass, doesn't want her to have a dime. And she ended up moving out because her mother was an alcoholic, and she said she grew up in a lot of chaos. So she always said that she didn't want chaos for her kids. And that was another thing the narrator said. When you're a kid that grows up in chaos, you grow up to be an adult who doesn't want to create chaos. So when you find out that your husband's cheating on you, you don't fight with him, you don't make a big deal of it. You just move out quietly so that it doesn't create chaos for your daughters. Well, she was struggling to pay for rent in her apartment, was going to get kicked out of her apartment, and the ex-husband then threatened her, saying he was going to take her daughters away.
Yeah, the lawyer said if she didn't have a place to live, that she would lose her kids.
She got very desperate and, went to go. She needed $6,500 basically, and that's why she went to go rob the bank. That ended up being a cashless bank for $6,500 because she just wanted that money to get on her feet, and then she was going to figure out a way later on how to give it back to the bank. Like, again, just not interest. Thinking this through, but just super desperate, super, I'm going to lose my kids, I'm going to lose my house, I have to figure out something. And Jim, being the type of human that he is, felt horrible for the situation. He could totally empathize and understand why she chose to do what she did. And he could tell that these people weren't in any danger.
Correct. Yeah. Because as he's sitting in the hallway, he's noticing that it actually sounds like a family dinner. Like people are just having conversations with each other and everybody is okay.
Right.
And that this is the most bizarre hostage situation that he's ever heard of. So then in that moment, Jim makes the decision to basically give her a pass.
Yeah.
And that basically what would my wife do?
Yeah.
Even though it's by the book, not necessarily the right thing to do from a police standpoint.
Right.
As a human.
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing.
And everybody was in agreement with this too.
Yeah. Everybody in the apartment was already trying to figure out a way of how to basically help the bank robber get out of this situation, to the point that they were arguing over who would answer the door to accept the pizzas because they were afraid that if it is a police officer, they're just going to shoot.
Yeah.
She's talking to Jim. He basically is the apartment across the hall is empty. So maybe the realtor has the keys since she's also listing that place and you can just go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And
from there, you figure it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so she goes back in the apartment and talks to, she's trying at this point now to not have them know all the ins and outs of what her plan is so that they are not in a position where they have to lie about anything.
Yeah, they want to have plausible deniability.
Correct. And so they, on their own, came up with the idea for her to go into the apartment across the hall, but the realtor didn't have the keys. She's like, why would I have the keys? I'm not listing it for another 2 weeks because everybody knows you can't list 2 apartments at the same time.
Right.
And so it's everybody always has these things where everybody knows all these things. And it's very interesting because we do have these social norms of what everybody knows, that these rules that we have that aren't actually rules.
Right.
But everybody knows them.
But the things they were mentioning weren't necessarily things that everybody knows.
And so basically in that moment, Estelle's like, I had an affair once. And everybody's like, okay, she's had a little bit too much wine. And she's like...
it was so out of the blue.
Yeah. Because the whole time she's talking about her husband, Canute, who she loved, and they never actually got out of the honeymoon phase.
Right.
And so she confesses that she had an affair, and that the person that she had an affair with was a big lover of books. Her husband was a big lover of music. Right. She also really loves books. So her and the person really connected over this, and they had exchanged books and underlined certain lines of having these little communications with each other.
Yeah.
And that he had given her a key to his house, and she takes a book off of her bookshelf and she drops it on the floor, and out comes a key. Because the person that she was having an affair with lived in the apartment across the hall. Yep. Which I was like,
yeah.
You gotta go far. And that the people who lived in the apartment after he passed away didn't ever change the locks,
mm-hmm.
which everybody noted was very creepy for her to know.
Right.
And so she did wonder often, you know, how different her life may have been had she met him before she met Knut.
Right.
But neither here nor there, it sounded like she had very much two loves of her life.
Yes.
And so basically, the hostages are let go. She goes into the apartment across the hall, hides out, and then basically goes on to this is where I feel like I got a little confused. It sounded like she ended up living with Estelle.
She did. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So she basically ends up living, her and her daughters, when she has her daughters, they end up living with Estelle.
Yep.
Which is such a beautiful end to this whole saga.
It was.
Because it talks about like these kids who grow up and they just watch the fireworks and all of these things, and it was just like, I'll let you wrap up. Because this part I was like...
No, it was very heartwarming too. So that's also a thing. Before they were all let go, that was another thing that they asked for the negotiator, from the negotiator, in addition to the pizza, is we want to see fireworks here.
Yeah.
So they shot fireworks and they saw fireworks and then all of that. But yes, so I believe it was Ro and Jessica ended up getting the apartment across.
I thought it was Julia.
Julia, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes.
Like, that's the second time you said Jessica. I'm like, dang, am I wrong?
So Ro and Julia, I believe, ended up getting the apartment across the hall and living there. And Estelle, with their son, yep. And Estelle offered to have the bank robber come live with her daughters. And like you said, they just grew up in that way. And then, sadly, Estelle ends up passing away.
But many years later.
Many years later. They had a lot of years with her. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
And then Zara ends up going to see her therapist one more time and just talking to her about actually being honest with her.
Right.
She hands her the letter, which I forget the therapist's name.
Nadia.
Mm-hmm. She opens it and it basically says, it wasn't your fault.
Yes. So
all this time, for 10 plus years, she's been thinking that this was her fault for this person to say, like, it wasn't your fault.
Yeah. And just imagine had she opened that letter when it was first sent, instead of just assuming, like anyone would.
But that's one of those things where everything happened exactly the way that it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So then she's able to start her healing journey. Her and Lennart get Boudette. Mm-hmm. And then she sends a letter to Jack with, I think it was an article or something, where it basically says, like, this is the person. So, I think it's like the article of the girl who jumped off the bridge, and it's an address, which then happens to be the therapist's office. Mm-hmm. And then within the letter is another letter that he's supposed to give to her when he gets there. So then when he sees her, he immediately knows who she is. He gives her the letter, she opens it, and then they basically find out that she was the girl on the bridge and he was the person who saved her. Right. Which I was like,
that was so beautiful, because she was unconscious. She never knew or anything. So for her to know
this is on the bridge, and then she was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so that was beautiful.
It was.
Roger and Annalena, they have a new appreciation for each other and the sacrifices that they are willing to put into each other because of their love for each other. And so he puts forth more of an effort to take her on a date. Yep. And yeah, that was just...
It's pretty much it. Yeah. Everything was wrapped up in a bow, but it was still very realistic in how it ended.
Not necessarily a fairy tale ending, but definitely where you can just kind of be like, look at God. Right. You know? Right. Just appreciate all of just the weird ways that people are interconnected. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Yeah. I think that's it.
I think that's it, guys. That was a doozy.
Yeah, that was a little hard. That was harder than, was it the Night Circus?
The Night Circus, yeah.
That was harder than
You got to be careful with these dual timelines.
Yeah.
Little jumping
you don't really know until you're in it.
Right,
you're like,
right.
Whoa. Okay. But yeah.
It was good, though. Good book, guys.
Definitely check it out. Anxious People by...
Fredrik Backman.
Yeah, there you go. And I was looking at the
I'm pretty sure it's a show now, by the way.
I think it is too. I think it's like a Netflix show or something.
We're so bad about that.
With good reason. Stuff. With good reason.
Yeah, we just be reading stuff and then find out later.
But there's another book by this author that I think has been turned into a movie. Like a man named
Ovi or Ova or something
like that. And if this is the movie that I'm thinking of, girl, when I tell you I cried like a baby.
Oh, it's like that. Okay.
Waterworks.
Oh, wow.
Which, had I known that before, I'd have been like, that's a hard no.
Okay.
Because when we started getting to the tail end of this book, the waterworks were flowing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, damn you, Maggie.
They were kind of happy tears, though.
They were, yeah. But it was like, I don't like to...
I feel you, yeah.
Nobody wants to have real emotions when it comes to these things. I want to be in a fantasy land, okay? But the movie of that other book, so good. So the book is better than the movie.
Wow. Yeah. Who played in it, do you know?
I want to say it was, Tom Hanks?
Oh, that's got to be good then.
If it's the movie that I think of, it's basically this elderly neighbor who's, he's kind of like a Gestapo. Like, he's very particular about the trash can. He's like not the HOA, but kind of the HOA. Like, trash cans are supposed to be in the place where they are. Everything needs to be exactly the way that it's supposed to be. Okay. There's order. Mm-hmm. And he has a very specific routine. And he has these neighbors that move in with their kids. And it's just, they're not following the rules, but not deliberately. They got little kids. Right. There's like toys everywhere. And he did experience a loss. And it just, I can't even.
Okay.
It just, when I tell you, I cried for the majority of this movie. My mom was watching it, and I was just like, see, this is why you can't just walk into somebody's house and just sit down and watch what they're watching. Yeah. You never know what you're going to walk into. But yeah, girl, I cried.
Oh, man.
And I don't like to watch movies.
No, you're getting weepy.
I know, exactly. All right. Anyway. So, all right, besties, let us know down below if you have any book recommendations or if you, I guess any book recommendations. Let us know down below. All right, besties. Bye. Bye.